meeting to order at 5:34. Any declaration of interest or general nature thereof, please signify at this point. Deputy Mayor.
I would, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest, please.
Okay, thank you. We have that conflict here, we appreciate that. We are losing quorum as we have two councillors that have called in and sent threats. So we have 15 minutes to deal with Mr. Hall's issue, and then the Deputy Mayor will return after that conflict, so and then we can proceed with the meeting. So the next thing on the agenda is Z-2019-013, Hall 158 Days Road. If you'd like to come to the podium, Mr. Hall. Please go ahead.
Okay, I guess the paperwork has all been filed based on, got a permit to construct a dock that was in poor repair, roughly 1985, with the approvals of ministry and also through the township office. The work was performed by a local contractor. During the subsequent year, all the pilings lifted out of the water, and the dock was going straight up in the air at the very end. So based on the fact there was no in-water repairs required, the contractor came back, basically put it back the way it was, and the following year over the winter, lo and behold, the same dock lifted out of the water again because of high water, ice, and then it shifted the main canopy dock, and we had a covered boat port with a roof, and so the same contractor came back again, but the repairs were more extensive to the existing. Again, no water, no work was required in the water. I'm acting as an agent for my son because it was my property originally, and then through some estate planning, we had transferred the property over to my son Jamie, who is now ownership. Severed a bunch of properties, moved a house, and then the contractor said, well, we have a nice design to redo the boathouse on the same footprint. And led to believe all the permits were in place and so on. And built it very similar to, we was about 8, 9 houses on Jockstraw Lane. Probably 70% of them have boathouses with decks on top. We had one from the Muskokas. Our contractor said, we can build that for you on the same footprint, and proceeded to tear it apart, and one thing led to another, and some frustration, and we actually ended up finishing the wood structure ourselves. And then we find out near the very end, after everything's done, that he's under scrutiny on a bunch of other jobs, and the same problem exists still. Now we still have pilings. The boathouse is shifted, so we're now in the process of getting another contractor. This contractor is not in business anymore, so we're seeking approval for what we have. It's a little past what we had, we know that, and we're seeking approval for what we have, and then I think it's CCRA or whatever, they're waiting to know that we have approval, and then we're going to sort of go through the permits to get the proper piling drilled into the ground with pins. I've consulted a couple of contractors in the area that do a lot of the work, and so we kind of know what needs to be done, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Planner, would you like to make some comments in regards to this? Thank you.
Thank you, through your worship. This is an application for zoning amendment. It's proposing to put the property into a site-specific environmental protection zone to allow for a greater area of dock than is permitted under the existing zoning. There's also relief required for a side yard setback provision. There has been some inquiries from the public with respect to the application. The application has been circulated for review, and the Conservation Authority has indicated that they have no concerns with the application as proposed.
Are there any questions from the members of council on attendance this evening? Councilor Mayhew?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, Mr. Hall. The actual dock that's there presently, you're talking that pile driving, you're going to pile drive the next one in. Has there been consideration also of a floating dock system that you put in
Yeah.
place with your boathouse and?
Definitely, we've looked at that, but, you know, our setting is so, you know, spectacular
Yes.
that we hate to go. I was pushing that, and then Jamie, you know, we would only go that if the water persists to be, you know, our whole area is a mess with high water. So even if we hadn't had the lifting of the docks, we could use the dock. And I'm not sure I heard this right, but the footprint we had for a dock did not increase in size, as far as we're
So it's
concerned.
the same footprint?
From the original approval.
So the planner can answer that question.
Through your worship, the information that we have is that the existing dock was built without the necessary permits and doesn't comply with the provisions under the zoning bylaw. The application is to bring it into compliance entirely.
Just as a clarification, obviously, the consideration for floating dock was one piece of it, but due to high water, this would be a more secure dock. Would that be a correct assumption to the way that the piles will be drove so that they can withstand the?
Yeah, I'm not hearing it real well, but like what we have is perfect if it wasn't lifting the same way, the same piles are lifting. And so what happened was when we did the second repair, the contractor tied the existing boathouse structure we had into the steelwork he did, which we had a permit for. And then that caused the high water and the ice caused it all to shift.
Clarification, Councilor Mayhew?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And, Mr. Hall, the area that you are is spectacular, and you've done great work there to make it a beautiful place in our township. And I also would say that the pile driving would be a more secure dockage, and if there's increased pile driving needed to be done, it would enhance the security of the dock being left in place during our high water or ice conditions. And having seen this, it is a beautiful place, and I commend you for all the work that you have done on that site.
Any further questions? Councilor Garone?
Through you, Your Worship, to the planning department, the deck on top of that building, I noticed that it's been added on to all the square footages relating to the marine facility. Is that why do we do that? Why do we add that when in fact it's sort of a vertical issue?
Go ahead, Gwen.
Through your worship, it's being added because the way our zoning works right now, it doesn't contemplate usable space on the rooftop of a boathouse or marine facility. So it's something that's being added and recognized specifically through the zoning amendment.
Any further questions for Mr. Hall or the planner in regards to this application? Anything else you'd like to add before we tie this up?
No, not really. I just wanted the clarification. I think if the piling that exists is properly drift pin, that's the terminal. I was involved in the boat museum. I was on the board when that was done, and so I learned a little bit from Mr. Keyhole about what causes the lift with ice and so on. So and it's a pretty not very intrusive issue if they just go in and drift pin it into the rock. It's all bedrock. So if it gets drift pinned into the rock, then it would take a lot of upward pressure from ice to lift it again, because this is the third time. So,
Hopefully the last time.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We
Thanks a lot.
appreciate it. Mr. Lackey, if you could hear us, if you'd like to come back into the room. We sincerely hope that high water is mitigated before that should happen again. Hopefully we are not persistent with that. Okay, so in light of time, now that we are back with quorum, I will go through the public meeting introduction, just to be clear, because we do have another public meeting happening. And just for clarification, personal information collected at this public hearing and on the forms provided at the back of the room is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments are collected and form part of the minutes which are available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by applicant or staff, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comments or questions, and when you speak, please provide your name and address for recording in the minutes. All comments should be directed to the chair of the proceeding. The applicant will be provided the opportunity to address public questions once all members of the public have made their submissions. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information is gathered and then referred back to planning staff for consideration in the review of the application. This means that after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their review of the application. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation to council regarding said application. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or a public body would have an ability to appeal the decision of council to the local planning appeal tribunal, but that person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Okay, so moving right along to, or is there questions from the public in regards to, sorry, I apologize. Moving along with the application next, Z-2019-015-734-209, Ontario Limited Rockport Boat Line, 1994 Limited, Front Street, Rockport, with the Plan 196, Part Block L, Part Water Lot RP 28R13033, Parts 4 and 6. Madam Planner, would you like to speak to this first before they come to the podium? Thank you.
Thank you through your worship. This is an application to rezone a portion of the property owned by the Rockport Boat Lines from an institutional zone to a tourist commercial zone for the purposes of allowing a dock to support the commercial boat line operation that's there. Notice was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. There has been correspondence received from a number of members of the public. I know some of it has been distributed to council this evening. I'd also like to note that there was a letter received from the owner of the boat lines that was directed to yourself and members of council. That letter, there are a few copies of it up front, and we will put it online with the rest of the supporting information for the application. It's not currently there, but we'll get it up tomorrow. And if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
We will ask the Rockport Boat Line to come to the podium and speak to their application, please and thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. My name is Mike Keane, and I'm the land use planner with Foten Consultants, and I'm here on behalf of Rockport Boat Line. And I have a short presentation to assist with the conversation this evening. So tonight, as the staff planner has noted for you, this is an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. So just moving into a bit of background to help with context of what's going on. On the slide, what you see is a red outline, and that red outline is showing you various properties that are owned by the boat line. The zoning application, the institutional zone, is only on the old what's labeled as the old government dock property, and you'll see this as I move through the slides. And this is just to help with context in terms of understanding, what we're talking about here. And so because it has an institutional zone on it, being a former government dock is probably the reason it had that. It's not in conformity with the official plan, which labels this as a tourist commercial area and property. So a zoning bylaw amendment is needed to make an improvement to the dock at this location. So this is just quickly showing you the entire property again in the official plan, and you can see that there is a small part of the property that has a residential designation up very in the top kind of northwest corner of the village, but otherwise the entire property is a tourist commercial property, which is a broad-ranging designation within the municipal official plan. So when you turn over to the zoning bylaw, what is actually happening here is that old institutional zone still applies to this part of the Rockport boat line property, which represents a very small part of their ownership. And so because an institutional zone doesn't permit a dock, that's why the amendment's necessary. But also because these uses have existed since before the zoning bylaw, they're existing legal non-conforming uses. So this is just looking at it more closely now at the property in question. So the idea is to unify the property. There was some discussion with waiting until the municipality updates its own zoning bylaw and bringing the zoning into compliance at that time. But similar to your previous zoning amendment, the boat line has experienced damage due to 2 years of high water, and they need to make repairs to their main dock. And as a result, they need to move a boat over to this dock, which then also needs some upgrades to be able to do that, so they can make the necessary repairs. So what might be hard to see on this image, so what I've done is I've highlighted on the next image with the yellow highlight in the water. So there must have been a dock there at some point, because there's old piles in the water that, whether the dock is sunk or fallen. And so the options were either dig all that out and park the boats along the concrete hard edge, or build a wooden platform over top of it. So what the boat line would like to do is build the dock extension. And as was also brought up by the staff planner, appreciating there's concern that does this mean the boat line is going to grow and expand, and what the owners have committed to is the fact that they would agree to limit the boat line to 4 boats through process, and we'll work with the staff planner to figure out exactly what the provisions need to be to do that. So this is just also to help with the discussion. You can just kind of see the shuffling of the boat, because the main dock, which is on the top of the photo, is where all the servicing of the boats take place in terms of bringing on food, bringing on water, gas, repairs, all take place at the main dock. So they already have a shuffling process when the boats need to be shifted. So you can see that by building the new dock, this would move the Canada Spirit, which is the larger boat, down to this quadrant of the property, leaving effectively a service bay at the main dock, so that as boats need service, they could be moved there, or weather conditions, whatever might be the case. It would just give an opportunity for maneuvering the boats around. And it would also, by moving the large boat to this area, would really free up where people load onto the boats. They would fully be on the Rockport property, Rockport boat line property, as opposed to on Front Street. So again, what the amendment would do is change it from institutional to a tourist commercial zone. And we're also, when we've looked at your bylaw, We're realizing that some general provisions should also be amended so that at the end of the day, all of the property would conform in terms of its use. In addition to the zoning bylaw amendment, there would also be a site plan control application and permits through the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority. And one of my jobs as a land use planner is to review documents like this in terms of consistency with provincial policy statements and conformity to both your official plan and the county's official plan. And I find that by bringing this zoning bylaw into a tourist commercial zone, we'll meet those conformity and consistency tests. So at the end of the day, would represent good land use planning. And I'm pleased to answer any questions of council, and I will remain here to assist with questions from both the public and council should the mayor call any.
Thank you, Mike. Just to reiterate, the letter that was received by us as council members, as well as the planning department, that will be added to the online submission, identifies a number of the comments that were made by their agent here tonight, but that their commitment is to not increase the size of the business per se, but leaving it at 4 boats. And we appreciate their assistance with working with the planner to find middle ground, to find a way to make that happen. So thank you very much. A number of councillors and myself have had an opportunity to go down and see the site and see exactly what it is that they were hoping to do. But this is where we will ask any questions or have any concerns made known. So, Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Your Worship, I didn't get a chance to ask that day, but you already have a water lot lease for that position for your dock?
Well, through you, Your Worship, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that because I don't know. Like in terms of that, there was a dock there already, so I'll have to confirm that.
Deputy Mayor, follow up?
So, providing that you don't have that water lot lease, you will have to apply, correct?
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure about that because it's Crown land. I'm not sure that it would be any different than anybody else in the islands applying for permissions for docks and boathouses, but I'll have to confirm that. So I appreciate the question.
So we'll recognize Councillor Burrell next. Please speak into the microphone. Some of the people can't hear at the back, just to be clear. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, and good evening, Mike. In reading through your documentation here, a couple of things come to mind, and I just needed clarification. It said the subject site is an existing lot of record, and therefore most things become legal non-conforming. I wonder if you could explain that a little more clearly for myself and the public. And my second question is, throughout your documentation, you also say that you have made application for site plan control. So my question specifically is, to what properties does that apply? Because we have patios sitting on there that are too close to the water. We have many, many, many issues, which I won't highlight, but I would like exact clarification of what properties suddenly fall under the township's ability for site plan control. Thank you.
Certainly. Through you, Madam Mayor. So in this case, the government, the parcel that I referred to as the government dock is a parcel of land that has independent zoning on it. At one point, it had a right-of-way up to Front Street. So that is the lot of record that has operated as a dock since before the existing zoning bylaw even had a former tour boat operator on that dock, which established the use of the dock as a tour boat operation, therefore defaulting that to what we refer to in planning terms as a legal non-conforming use. Now, in terms of immediate site plan control, when a zoning bylaw amendment application is applied for, that is when the municipality has the opportunity to file a site plan on record. So in the short term, the site plan would apply to this government dock property. And should the boat line make changes to their other properties, that is when the municipality would have opportunities to bring those other properties under site plan compliance.
Follow up?
Once again, for clarity, you are suggesting, or you are maintaining here, that the site plan control is strictly for the piece of property that we're discussing tonight, even though you are rolling it into the commercial tourist planning for the entire area there. The site plan control that the township can control, we're only dealing with this little piece of property called the parking lot. Is that correct?
So through you, Madam Mayor, there's two things going on here. There's the commitment from the owners to limit the use of all of the properties to 4 boats. So I'm working with staff to figure out how exactly we do that through a planning process. Because right now the application is for this small government dock property only. So therefore, the short-term immediate site plan would only apply to that government dock process. But I'm trying to work with staff to try to figure out how this commitment could more broadly apply to all of the properties. If that help, I don't know if that helps or not.
Madam Planner, maybe you could add some clarification.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to add to that, with respect to what Mr. Keane has explained about the site plan control, that's correct. That we can only apply the site plan control to the property in front of us right now. However, in looking at the location of the property, recognizing that it's functioning as part of the broader operation, there's the opportunity to include provisions in the agreement that speak to connections with the adjacent properties and at what time the adjacent properties may redevelop or require some type of planning approval. That's the process that Mr. Keane's speaking to in terms of how we start relating each of the properties to each other and how the function of the properties work together. But technically, what's in front of us right now is this piece of property.
Councilor Grant?
Through you, Your Worship, and I don't really mean to dominate this time here. I know it's for a public meeting, but a couple of things to come to mind. When I look at the application form, it says, right, zoning bylaw amendment, and in brackets, including H removal and temporary use in brackets. Now, I've read what that suggests, and was that on the original application, or has that been added after our meeting? And can you explain precisely what those terms mean? And do they restrict the way the township can and cannot move forward with the boat line on this application?
Madam Planner?
Through Your Worship, which I'm not certain what document it is that you're
It's
considering.
the application document.
Through Your Worship, the application document is an inclusive document that speaks to different approvals that could occur under those sections of the Planning Act. So when you do a zoning bylaw amendment, you can amend the zoning on the property under section 34, but there's other sections of the Planning Act that also speak to pulling symbol removal, as well as temporary zones. So there's different sections under the Planning Act, but they all relate back to zoning. So the zoning amendment application that you're speaking to applies to all 3 types of amendments. So it's not specific to this application that those 3 pieces are being looked at.
Wonderful, thank you. Any further questions for Mr.? Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And when you were talking about the old dock that's obviously in the water, and the new foundation for the dock that's proposed, would that be pile driven? And with that particular area being very deep water, is there concessions for how it's going to be pinned back to the existing dock with that steep rock incline?
Mr. Dean?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have seen only high-level construction documents from Kehoe Marine on how they would do it. It is definitely a pile-driven dock as opposed to a proposal to fill that area with rock. So rather than either remove it or fill it, it would be like a surface platform on piles is the proposal, and a wooden or a concrete deck for the top surface. So yeah, we have to get ideally past that rock and rubble that's there to that deep water for the tour boats to have safe clearance.
Thank you, Mr. Keane. Sorry, not Dean, I apologize. Any further questions from any other councillors? Councillor Giroux?
I think, Mr. Keane, that you've answered this through you, your worship. I noticed you bring up safety many times in your presentation, which is available to the public, and talking about people, movement, and so on. So two things, once again, were highlighted to myself. Number one, I haven't seen, and I'm not an engineer, but we haven't seen any engineering drawings for a proposed dock that is going to hold hundreds of people. It's your property, but the township is being asked to give it its blessing, and I find that incredible. In fact, a property adjacent to the boat line was asked to come up with engineering drawings for a simple ADJOURNMENT ramp. Engineering drawings. So I think it would be, would it not become upon the boat line to provide engineering diagrams and drawings for the township planning department? Thank you.
Mr. Keane?
So through you, Madam Mayor, that absolutely engineering drawings will be provided, and you know, that's where it will come under that site plan approval process, as well as the Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority process. So there will be highly detailed drawings that will be prepared and provided to the municipality and the CRCA at that time.
I would assume that we have to have those in place to do the building permits. Is that correct, Madam Plan? Thank you very much. Councilor Giroux?
I suppose one last point before we have a chance for the public to talk to this, Mr. Keane, and through your worship. Throughout your presentation, once again, it was highlighted that the movement of people, the safety and everything, and it seemed to be, you're suggesting that the flow of people is better and so on and so on, but this whole application has nothing to do with the flow of people. It was put in there. So what are the actual facts as to, or has the boat line, are they going to provide the planning department? Are you going to participate in the actual safety and flow of people across the township road from a parking lot that exists? We're all familiar with that. But it's just sketchy. You know, they come in this entrance, they go with that entrance, and there's going to be all of this wonderful flow to an immense dock. Any thoughts on collaboration here on how you're getting across the road? And finally, one last question for the planning department. Something called community benefits charges. Is that something that applies to this sort of application? It may or may not. I didn't read into too much detail. The reason I bring it up, it is a potential way of the township garnering some dollars to mitigate some of this traffic flow and some of the person flow. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Madam Planner, do you want to speak to the last point that Mr. Giroux made?
Through your worship, community benefits is a tool under the Planning Act that municipalities can use when there's intensification occurring. It usually is mainly applied with residential intensification because the influx of people through a residential density increase creates an impact in the area. I can see where you're drawing a parallel here. It wouldn't apply in this circumstance, and in addition to that, we also are looking at ways to limit the intensity of new development through this application. So community benefits wouldn't be something that we would be able to apply to the situation because technically it's not an increase in density.
Follow up. So the document that Mr. Keane has provided, he frequently, and I think think you agree, frequently uses the term that this is sort of a commercial intensification. He's making this, he's joining together what we would consider residential infill. And throughout that document, I could highlight numerous examples where it's clearly stated this is a commercial infill, a commercial intensification. Would you agree with that, Mr. King?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have I don't know if I have the same meaning for the language that you're using, but absolutely, the fact that this is a commercial property in the official plan, I would absolutely say it's appropriate to unify the property for the use that exists there today. And that, you know, the more times we're in front of you as council and in front of staff, you know, acknowledging that Rockport as a village has its challenges is going to help to, you know, hear those concerns and make improvements, the safety being one of them. You know, the boat that's moving to the other dock is the boat that primarily does the shorter 1 hour tours, so a lot of transition. So when people congregate on Front Street, they get onto your public road. What will change by primarily operating the boat out at the other dock is having the people more fully congregate on top of the Rockport boat line property, getting them down that path and down onto the dock in the area. It's not necessarily going to put a crosswalk across the Front Street to get from the parking lot to here, but that's the intent of, you know, some of the language in my report when I'm talking about safety, acknowledging that it's a successful business and it makes for certainly a busy Rockport overall.
Madam Planner, I have a question. In regards to the consultation process that we've embarked on with Dillon and Associates, I believe, was the Rockport boat line part of that consultation, and was this amendment part of the discussion, or was that already in play prior to the consultation? I guess what I'm trying to find out is if this amendment was part of the discussion as far as working with both of these things to make things more safe and move people, because I know there's been a lot of discussion in regards to potential speed bumps, crosswalks, whatever, what have you. So I'd like you to speak to that if you could, please.
Through your worship, the study was scoped prior to this application being submitted. However, this is being considered within the context of that study, absolutely, and all of the information has been provided to the consultants. The consultants have met with the boat lines as well to talk about the application. So it's absolutely considered in the content of that.
I wanted to be sure that that was also included as part of, because often these studies get done and then these things get missed. So, Councilor Rudd, and then I'll take questions from the public.
Thank you, Your Worship. In that the site plan control does not apply to any other territory here, private citizens are often taken to task with orders to comply regarding setbacks. We have numerous examples in Rockport of areas that do not comply. I just wondered, would the planning department consider taking a look at those areas and requesting orders to comply or whatever would be appropriate? Or can we not do that because there is no site plan control in those other areas?
Madam Planner.
Through your worship, if I could just ask for clarification so I understand the question. Are you asking that we review the existing buildings and uses on the properties to understand areas of compliance and non-compliance with the zoning bylaw?
That would be more correctly stated than that. Thank you.
So the application in front of us is specific to the property that we're looking at right now. There is no existing site plan on any of the other properties. However, that doesn't preclude staff from reviewing the zoning. Now, there are a number of uses in buildings and structures that are existing legal non-compliant down there, but staff can look at that. It would have to be a separate, it doesn't relate directly to this application.
So essentially, she's saying that they have the ability to look at the site after as well. Is that correct?
Not through this application.
Not through this application, but separate to this application, you have that ability.
That's correct.
So I'll take comments from the public. Thank you, Mr. Keating. Please come forward and state your name. I would ask that the comments be brief. We'd rather continue on with our meeting, but I would like to hear the comments from the public.
My name is Pierre Mercier, 1210 County Road 2, and I hope I didn't bring away my only copy. I will go through, here we go. I'll go through it very quickly. I'm not word by word. One of the items, the first one I mentioned, is my concern with the Township's Rockport Strategic Plan Review and Transportation Strategy. And I'm seeking assurances that this won't be rendered obsolete by this, or even partially obsolete by this process. I want to applaud the boat line in terms of discussing and addressing some of my concerns already in terms of the number of boats and so on, and those undertakings are appreciated. The devil's in the detail, though, in that they mentioned 4 boats, and they could increase the size of the individual boats and thereby greatly increase the pedestrian and vehicular traffic through the area. So if that could be adjusted to bums in a seat sort of language, that would be appreciated. A minor thing perhaps is the parking. It appears that the parking is, that exists there already is expected now to do double duty. And there are 23 on-site surface parking spaces. Those are largely used by people visiting the restaurant and the pub. And it appears now that they're to be used by people taking boat tours as well. I wanted to stress my point number 4, which is to applauding the efforts to achieve increased operational efficiencies, resulting in less vehicular and pedestrian traffic congestion and pollution. Pollution is a major concern in the village. And I look forward to seeing further evidence that this will occur. It's an intriguing proposition and one of wholesome promise. And I hope that the boat line will continue to work with the township and with the residents to try to make Rockport into the best village possible. And I think I'll leave it at that. The next one is, I'm just going to jump ahead. Margot Miller couldn't make it here tonight. She asked me to table her comments, and because of the time constraints, I'll just pass these out. And again, I'll make sure that they're available to the public through your website and so on. I think that some of her concerns are again addressed by the undertaking by the boat line. And she has some questions about site concerns with the boats blocking the view of the river and the view from the river. So she'd like that addressed as well. Staging. Again, she wants to address the parking for the tour boats as well. And I'll leave that to you to have a look at and turn the microphone over to other people. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Further comments to be made? Please come forward.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. My name is Jack Sturkin. I live at 63 Burgess Lane in Rockport. I have very severe concerns about the expansion of the business. I do not buy the claim that if we limit it to 4 boats, nothing will happen. The community is under stress, as was stated by the planner. Where does that stress come from? It came from the activities generated by the boat line. The buses, the cars, the parking problems, the pollution, the pedestrians, and the inability of, for instance, a far more important economic activity, like for instance our contractors. It interferes with their ability to do business and to park in the community and use the community as a base to work on the islands. And the continued delay, for instance, on the, what do you call the thing, to let the boats in the water, is indicative of that. They have been ignored in this whole process. I have serious problems. They mention time and time again in this study that they will improve the effectiveness and efficiency of the boat line operation. Nowhere in this study is there any comment about the impact on the community, both as it exists now and as it may change, in the future. The fact that they're going to limit themselves to 4 boats is self-explanatory. There is no more space, even with the new dock. But there's no indication that they're going to limit themselves to the number of passengers that they're capable of carrying. So I would want a very clear commitment that there will be no further increase in the number of passengers or the capacity of the boat line to carry passengers. There are several other things. The boat line is in a violation of many of the bylaws and regulations. The parking lot for the buses merges into the roadway, which is causing a lot of problems. It is not clear where the parking lot ends and the roadway begins. People wander all over the place. It's a very dangerous situation. It's an extremely annoying situation. I would make as a quid pro quo for anything that you allow the boat line to do is that a separation between the road and the parking lot be created as is required by the planning and the bylaws of this area. Right now, they just run wild. There is a possibility, I think, that maybe the boat line should consider constructing a driveway to the parkway, the owner of the land. I can see no particular engineering problem with building a driveway from their parking lot, past the toilets, up the hill to the parkway, and get permission from the parkway to get a driveway. That would be a private driveway, and that would alleviate the problems of the buses and the extra traffic on Front Street and Burgess Lane, neither of which are designed for that kind of traffic. There is no protection for any of the pedestrians on those roads. There is no sidewalks, there is no demarcations, there are no lines on the road. So buses run up and down the middle of the road, and they move over to decide whether you're there or not when someone's coming from the other side. You basically get pushed off the road as a pedestrian. As far as the use of this new dock is concerned, all the passengers will still arrive on the north side and on the east side of Front Street. They will all have to cross Front Street in order to get to the staging areas. They keep making the claim that this will alleviate the problem of pedestrian congestion and things like that. No, they all have to cross. I think the only way that is possible maybe to control the type of crossing that exists is if you make a partition, a clear demarcation between the road and the parking lot, and if the buses don't have to come all the way down to the end of the road or to the water side in order to park. If they can go in a driveway and enter the parking lot from the north, that would alleviate a lot of the stresses. I mean, the planner said, Rockport is a community under stress. Well, where did the stress come from? I already said so. It is the traffic and that sort of thing. The river is a marvelous asset, okay? It is priceless. We all move here, most of us, or those who live here stay here because of that river. the quality of life and the ability to enjoy that river has been severely compromised over the last few decades with the expansion of the boat line. And I think further expansion needs to be stopped until some of the problems are addressed. There are lots of opportunities to address them. The fact that they always claim, oh, it is economic development. It is economic development for whom? The boat line is very successful. It is generating a lot of revenue. But how much of that stays in Rockport? Nothing stays in Rockport because there are no stores left. There are no facilities left. The houses have disappeared. They have become parking lots. So as far as the claim that this represents economic development, not for Rockport and not for Leeds and the Thousand Islands, you know. So I think we need to start taking account of those kinds of things, look at the needs of other constituencies, such as the contractors, and address them, rather than just concentrating on a money-making machine that basically takes, the money doesn't even get to the community, it just stays out of the community, it just uses this marvelous resource that we have. They benefit greatly. We suffer because of it. And I think that suffering needs to be ameliorated. It needs to be addressed. And our concerns and our wishes need to be recognized as legitimate and important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. Ms. Carmel? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My question is for the planner. Is the township able to legally set in place the structure and tools to accept Rockport Boat Line offer not to expand boat capacity?
Sorry, Madam Planner.
Thank you, through your worship. That is something that we can look at through the zoning in terms of provisions that go into the zoning. So we have been having some conversations with the owner's agent, as indicated through the letter that the boat lines provided. So it's something that we're looking at and we'll consider and address when we bring a recommendation forward.
Ms. Johnson?
Okay, my name is Donna Johnston. I live on Burgess Lane in Rockport. Mainly as this is just a comment and the way I see the way things have gone in Rockport. I had a few more extra things here, but it's pretty well been covered. I definitely support the growth, but not when it comes to the expense of the residents on land in Rockport or surrounding Rockport. Rockport is more than just the village. And also when it comes to the expense of the people on the island. And to the expense of other businesses. There are other businesses in Rockport and the transient visitors. I have many people coming to visit me in Rockport, and mainly I don't tell them which entrance to come to. They mainly just come through the main gate and they come down through Rockport and they can't get through. And we have people are coming to visit the new park that we have, that you're all aware of. And as I said, Rockport has so much to offer. There's so much in Rockport. When I first moved there was two tour boats in Rockport. And honestly, Rockport is the best place to me to take a tour. I have nothing against, I think Rockport Boat Line is fantastic. I support them 100%. They are a great boat line. And they are in the heart of the Thousand Islands. But the third one came, and that's when the congestion started. It was fine with the two, it was great. And then after the fourth, it became worse. Again, I am not against this new dock, and possibly in the location where it's going to be, I think it probably will work out maybe to be at a better location. It's going to condense maybe more people in one spot. But again, 4 boats, yes, that's definitely a way over capacity. And as long as people have already mentioned, as long as they don't increase the size of the boats. This poor little village is already over capacity. We are not Ottawa, we're not Kingston, or we're not even Gananoque. We are a small village of Rockport. It's beautiful. And as I said before, believe it or not, Rockport does have a lot more to offer if we were only able to see and enjoy it. I just wish that we could all work and come up with a solution to handle our current issue and what we have and not add any more to it. Because it is a beautiful spot. And I'm happy to be a resident there. And again, I have nothing, the boat line is a fantastic place. They have Cornwall's pub. It's great. As long as we can all enjoy it with it being over capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any further comments? Any further comments from the crowd? Seeing none, I will take, sorry, I've got too many new papers in front of me, I apologize. Yes, I'm finding that. Thank you, Councilor Kingston. Moved by Councilor Maybe, seconded, oh, sorry. Do you have something to add? And the planner would like, you'd like to tie a bow on this, I'm assuming? Okay. Sorry.
We're going to try to type one for a change. Through you, Your Worship, moving forward, there's been a lot of discussion of agreements and potential this, that, and the other between the Rockport boat line and the youth planning department, right? What kind of timing? This seems very urgent. There's an urgency to this, about getting this done so this can happen and that can happen. I mean, we haven't even begun to talk about what was going to happen on the other dock, on the east side, about the infringement onto our property line, things of that nature. So what is the timing moving forward that council can be aware, and how does it get brought to council and the public of what is actually being discussed and what has actually been determined? Thank you.
Madam Planner?
Thank you, through your worship. The boat lines has identified that there is a need to move this ahead as soon as possible to try to advance the dock repairs on their properties. At this point, we have received substantial comments tonight that we do need to look at. We will be working with Mr. Keene, representing the boat line, to try to address these comments. I don't have a specific date or timing right now at this point to bring this information forward. There's a few questions that need to be addressed, clearly, that have come up this evening, that our report with any recommendation will need to look at. As well, any report coming forward would have a recommendation and a zoning amendment together with it. So there's a lot of discussions to be had. I know that we will be having those as quickly as we can, but I don't have a date. Now, I would point out that there is a sign-in sheet up here at the front for any residents that are here tonight that want to be kept informed. So if you could make sure that you do sign that, so that we can make sure we provide you any notice of any upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Madam Planner. Mr. Keene, do you want to speak to any of the comments that were made here this evening to further clarify their questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief, knowing you have a council meeting and there will be an opportunity for me as an agent to address these comments in writing and work with your staff to come up with solutions, as many as possible. So I just want to echo the fact that absolutely there is some urgency to the dock repair, which is why we're here and why we didn't wait and work through your comprehensive zoning bylaw update, because of the damage that needs to be repaired. Winter is the best time to do those repairs, not only for the fact that the boat line is effectively closed, but also for things like fish habitat and natural resources. So there are benefits to doing the work in the winter. And I think you know, there's a recognition by the fact the owners appreciate the concerns of the residents of the village and the surrounding village, and that's why we've committed to working with staff to try to find at least some short-term solutions that will, you know, eventually be long-term solutions to make the village a place that they can feel proud to be a part of with the boat line again. But I do appreciate the opportunity to speak with council and the public tonight about this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, did you have a last comment today?
No, Your Worship, I'll bring my comments at a later meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further comments before I put the motion for adjournment up? Moved by Councillor Maybe, seconded by Councillor Jameson, that the public meeting adjourned. All those in favor, please signify. Mr. Jameson. Thank you. All those opposed? Carried.